Welcome to the Home Team Podcast. I'm Carl Falconer.
And I'm Danny Arroyo.
And we're tackling homelessness.
Today in our podcast, we will discuss two of our passions, football and ending homelessness. Please join us through 4 quarters, with our topic this week being, how do people get services in our system of care? So how's your weekend?
Good. The weekend was good. Did a little bit of running, getting back into it, starting to do more running and stuff, trying to get in shape a little bit, during the off season.
For the summer.
Got
For the summer.
Yeah, for the summer, exactly.
Get that bod back.
That's right. That beach body.
Beach
That's
body.
right. Exactly. Yeah, right. No.
I didn't. I took my wife to Ocala
Yeah.
to do some work out there, and then I just stayed home pretty much.
And chilled. Okay, good.
Dogs.
Yeah, I mean, it's the off season, you got to stretch, you got to, stay relaxed, you got to enjoy the time, because once the season comes,
Yeah.
it's going to be, hectic.
I watched a little bit of basketball just because the playoffs. So
Oh, yeah. Okay.
basketball person, but
Okay.
watch the Knicks, and
Okay.
but that's it.
All right.
It's quiet.
Great.
So yep. All right.
All right. Okay, Danny. Well, we always start off with our coin toss. So,
Sure.
Danny, call it in the air.
Heads.
It is tails.
There you go.
So I will go ahead and I'll start us.
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome to our first quarter. I'm going to kick off by defining our topic for the week, and then we will cover some news headlines. Let's start our discussion this week by describing the parts of our system of care. Again, our topic this week is, how do people get services in our system of care? So we may as well go ahead and start with the system of care. So there are many different parts to our system of care, and I'm going to run down some of these, and then we'll talk a little bit about how people might be able to access these services. Outreach, intake, and assessment. So that's where people get connected to housing and the services. We have emergency shelter, which is safe temporary housing. And I just want to point out, people are still homeless while they're in an emergency shelter, so it does not solve their homelessness. Transitional housing, short-term intensive support for people. Again, they're housed, but they're still technically qualified under HUD standards of being homeless when they're in transitional housing. Permanent housing, which is long-term stable housing, of course. And then there's permanent supportive housing, which is housing with services for people with disabilities or more intensive services. There's rapid rehousing, which is where people get into housing and get short-term financial aid. There's homelessness prevention, which is financial assistance that helps people avoid homelessness. So it's only for people who are still housed.
Right.
And then supportive services, a whole list of supportive services. And there's just a couple that I wanted to mention: case management, mental health and substance abuse support, legal aid, things like that are supportive services.
Yep.
And then, of course, there's the HMIS system, or the Homeless Management Information System. And that's our data collection and data management system. So it's basically our software, basically, where we keep our
track everyone.
database. Right.
We see the story of everyone.
Yeah. So let's just talk about accessing a couple of these different things. So I think for outreach, intake, and assessment, that's pretty easy, because outreach workers generally go out to the people, right? And they access them there. Or you call a hotline like 211 or something like that. Is it 311 here? 311 here. In Central Florida, 211 in other places, but you generally call a hotline or something like that. Emergency shelter, this is one that I think people really have a hard time with, because people think that anybody who wants to go to emergency shelter can just get in.
Yep.
And it's not true. I mean, there's a whole process for it, and there's often way too many people on a wait list trying to get into that shelter. And the way we have our system set up here in Central Florida is that it's basically first come, first serve more than anything.
Yeah. Just working previously at a shelter,
Uh-huh.
the lines that used to form before we even opened were around the block.
Yeah.
And usually we started intake around 7. by 7:30 we were done.
But yeah,
And we saw maybe about 3 or 4 people just because there's no beds.
no
There's
beds.
no beds, so
That's exactly
it
right.
was a constant turn away
Yeah.
of people that, were there waiting, camping out,
Right.
literally. Like,
Absolutely.
I used to drive by in the morning, they were just camping out
Yeah.
and waiting to get services.
Well, and I think
Mm.
that's again a community misperception that the community has is they just think, oh, if I find somebody out there, we can just go ahead and
Put 'em
drive up to the shelter and you'll
in
just
the
put them right into
Mm.
the housing or into the shelter. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And then these other things here, these other longer term ones, transitional housing, permanent housing, rapid rehousing, all of those housing options, you've got to go through a process. So you've got to go through what we call coordinated entry,
Right.
which is basically where people get put into the system and on a list.
Right.
And we prioritize people for these different types of housing,
Mhm.
depending on what's available and depending on what criteria they have to meet. And so it's not just the next day they get into housing.
Right.
We've talked about here at Pathlight Home, we have two different kinds of housing. We have program housing and we have market rate
Yeah.
housing. And again, we use our air quotes when we say market rate because it's
Mhm.
way below the market. But literally, the people in market, if we have a unit, they literally could walk in the same day, get into a unit.
Yep.
I mean, it's
Mhm.
as simple as that with our market units. But the program units have to come from referrals through that HSN system, the coordinated entry system, the homeless service network. And so it makes it a little more challenging because you got to find the people, you got to make sure they're eligible, you got to get them all lined up, and then you got to get all their documentation together and
That
get them.
that process definitely takes longer than the market unit, and
Yeah,
again, it's that our availability, if we have a you well,
that's right.
like, for the programs we have
We,
we have the units available.
yeah,
But it's that process of finding the person, getting them ready. Are they ready?
that's right. Yeah,
The documentation is a big one. That's huge for us.
absolutely.
Just getting an ID or,
Yeah, birth
because they have to
certificate.
come and
Yeah,
fill out an application just like everyone else and
that's
go through
right.
the process. So
Yeah,
they need bank statements. So if they don't have any of that, it just slows down the process.
absolutely.
So, but
Yeah. So it's not so easy
Mhm.
always to get
Yep,
into our system of
exactly.
care. And in different segments here, we'll talk about
Yep,
more about that.
definitely.
Um, right.
Yep. All right. So now let's take a look at a headline from the homeless world. So, here in Orlando, Scott Maxwell, in commentary piece in the Orlando Sentinel on May 6th, writes this. Once again, Orlando has found itself in a harsh spotlight, ranking as the worst metro region in America for affordable housing. So the bad way to start this.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
every 100 low-income families that need affordable housing, only 13 units are available, according to the annual report from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Only one other city in America ranks this poorly, and it's a familiar one, Las Vegas. Two cities were in a dead heat for dead last. This is not so funny. This not so sunny reality of tourism economies. Hotel housekeepers and fast food workers struggle to keep roofs over their heads. And Central Florida has about 55,000 of them, a population the size of Sarasota. When you have that many people living on the edge of a financial cliff, some will topple over. That's why communities like ours also struggle with homelessness. He goes on to write later in the article, this community needs solutions, not threats. Obviously, housing is just half of the equation. The other half is wages. Las Vegas and Orlando rank dead last and second to last, respectively, among major metros when it comes to wages. While most communities spend time and money trying to cultivate jobs that offer good salaries, Central Florida has spent billions of tax dollars trying to create more low wage ones. So we're constantly expanding a class of full time workers who do not make enough ends meet. As I've written many times before, I think we should aim higher and do better, but we still need more housing. So it seems pretty clear that all the groups and leaders trying to make that happen deserve our support.
Yeah. And
Let's see.
And I think this headline is pertinent, again, going back to our system of care, because we have so many pressures on that system
Right.
and so many people entering our system because of outside resources and outside things that are
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah.
13 units available for every
100.
100 people that need one.
Mhm.
That's just, ridiculous. And again, we talk about this sometimes as providers in our system of care. We can't end poverty. We're not going to end, everybody's, ability to, you know, gain living wages and all of those things. We're trying to end homelessness for people who are falling into the cracks, but keeping people from falling into the cracks is at least half of the battle.
Right.
And the
Well,
problem,
and just seeing the housekeepers and the fast food workers, 55,000.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's check to check.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
hardly that.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so if they have some hardship, now they're in another place of
That's
losing their
exactly right.
home.
That's
So
exactly right.
yeah,
And again, we try to drive these kinds of economies because we want people to come here for tourism. We want people to be able to access all our restaurants and
right,
hotels
exactly.
and the, resorts and all of the Disney Worlds and Universal Studios and all those different attractions that we have. But the people that are there have to make a living wage to be able to stay here and live here.
Yeah.
The number of people that I've talked to just since I've been here in Central Florida, and the commutes that they have to make. I mean, people are commuting an hour each way or more each way
Yeah.
to try and get to a job that's barely paying them enough to be able to pay their bills even. So it can be a big challenge sometimes.
Yeah, it's a good piece that you
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now let's talk about the schedules for Bears and Cowboys next season.
All right.
Oh,
Fantastic.
so the schedule's not fully out. Comes out
Not fully out. Comes out tonight.
You were hoping it was out
Yes,
sooner, but
exactly.
unfortunately they moved it.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
we do have who we're playing, so that's a
Yes, we do. Yes, we
so
do.
you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. All right. So my Bears got a pretty tough schedule this year, Danny. Apparently, we won our division.
Okay, thank
We
you.
got into the
I
playoffs.
know that.
We even won a playoff game.
Well,
Did you hear that?
guys, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Last year we did pretty well.
Yeah, we were home.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
We were home.
Lead up on the couch.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were relaxing. So of course this year we get a tougher schedule. That's just the way the NFL works, and I actually like that. The parity of the NFL has a lot to do with how they schedule teams and make their schedules harder when they're better teams and less hard when they're less teams. So I jotted down a few of the Bears home and away teams that we have to play, particularly the tougher ones, because obviously we have to play Detroit twice. We have to play Green Bay twice.
Yep.
We got to play Minnesota twice. I'm not really worried about them, but we'll deal with that anyway. But our home games, our big home games that we have are Jacksonville, who had a really good season last year, New England, who went to the Super Bowl, and Philadelphia, who was right there again at the top of the NFC. And then our away games, we have to play at Buffalo in their new stadium. And then we have to travel to Seattle to play away against Seattle too.
Okay.
That's just
I think
nuts, man.
I think we're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
Our home team,
Uh-huh.
home games, we
Yeah.
have Eagles,
Okay.
we have Jags.
Yeah.
Of course, we have Giants and Commanders, which is
Well,
our
of course. Yep.
division,
That's
of
right.
course.
Yeah.
And then away, same thing. We have Eagles.
Yeah.
We had the Seahawks,
Oh, yeah.
the Packers.
Yeah.
We have the Packers.
Okay.
So we're kind of in the same
Yeah.
playing kind of
Yeah.
people. So, our first game is against the Giants.
Yeah. They
Well,
did announce that one Sunday night
and then
in New York.
and then we're playing in Brazil.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
right. The Ravens, right? Y'all are playing the Ravens. Okay.
So like I said earlier, I'll be taking some time off.
Yeah.
for Rio. And then of course we play on Thanksgiving against the Eagles. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a crazy.
Oh, that's going to be crazy. I've been to that game before. I actually went to a Philadelphia game in Dallas on Thanksgiving.
The one I
So,
go for Thanksgiving
yeah.
was against the Bills.
Yeah.
And we got
Yeah.
killed.
I was going to say, y'all got killed against Philadelphia when I was there.
Right on Thanksgiving.
No.
Killed, but-
That's
so it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Tonight the new schedule.
tonight,
is out.
Thursday night. That's
The
correct.
dates and
Yes,
everything, so-
exactly. So we'll have dates on there and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that
Yep.
maybe in a, future show.
Yep, definitely.
Well, that wraps up our first quarter. And now here's a short message about an upcoming event at Pathlight Home. When golfers hear 4, it usually means something bad has happened, like shanking your ball out of bounds or into an innocent crowd. But we have an opportunity for 4 to mean something much better for everyone. I'm talking about our Pathlight Home Forever golf tournament to help us get more people housed. Join Pathlight Home on Friday, June 12th for the inaugural Forever Golf Tournament at Top Golf Orlando, where good people, good food, and a great cause come together for one unforgettable afternoon. And the best part, Every dollar raised helps Pathlight Home provide safe housing and critical services to individuals experiencing homelessness right here in Central Florida. So grab your team, reserve your spot, and come help us drive change one swing at a time. Space is limited, so register today at pathlighthome.org under the Events tab. We'll meet you at the Tee Box for good.
This is the second quarter. We're getting a little deeper into our homelessness topic with something we call offense versus defense. We will each take turns discussing some opposing viewpoints of our topic this week. The question we asked this week is, which is more valuable for a community, more access to shelter or more access to housing? Please remember that we are trying to show both sides of the issues. These do not necessarily reflect our individual stances on these positions. So I'm going to have offense on this one and you got defense.
Right.
So again, the question is, which is more valuable for a community, more access to shelter or more access to housing? So on my side is the first one is immediate safety from danger.
Now, hold on, Danny. The offense this week is more shelter.
More shelter. Oh, sorry,
You're
more shelter.
defending
Yes,
more
correct.
shelter.
I'm defending more shelter.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
So immediate safety from danger. Shelters provide immediate safe and warm shelter from the elements, protecting people from the dangers of living on the street. Rapid deployment. Building or expanding shelters can be done much faster at a lower initial cost than building permanent housing, making it a critical, immediate response to rising homelessness. Next, crisis intervention points. Shelters serve as an essential entry point for care, allowing providers to connect unhoused people with social services, mental health care, addiction treatment, and eventually permanent housing. Flexibility. Shelters can be adapted quickly to handle emergency spikes in population, such as in case of asylum seekers or natural disasters. And then finally, prevents further trauma. A clean, well-run, and safe shelter is better for immediate well-being than forcing people to live in dangerous, unsheltered, and traumatic conditions while they wait for long-term options.
Great.
So, go ahead, Carl.
I have the defense, which is arguing more housing is more valuable for a community. The first point is it ends homelessness long term. Providing permanent housing with supportive services, permanent supportive housing, is proven to be the only lasting solution to homelessness, providing stability, safety, and dignity. Second, cost effectiveness, taxpayer savings. Housing first policies can save taxpayers money. Studies indicate that unhoused people with severe mental illnesses use roughly $40,000 annually in public services between hospitals, shelters, and other emergency services. And providing housing saves about $1.44 for every dollar that's invested from the community. Next, it improves health and stability. Permanent housing leads to better physical and mental health outcomes, reduced hospitalization, and decreased emergency room visits compared to people in temporary shelters. Next, community integration. Stable housing allows individuals to connect to their community, participate in local life, and gain a sense of ownership, reducing the othering associated with temporary communal living situations. And finally, it addresses the root causes. Affordable housing reduces the economic pressure that forces residents into homelessness in the first place, offering a proactive approach rather than just a reactive one. All right, so let me talk about some of yours first.
Yep.
It does, in fact, provide the shelter obviously provides immediate safety from danger.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. And that one I think is probably a legitimate reason or rationale for more shelters is to get people off of the streets and get them out of danger. Rapid deployment, I don't know about that one. I mean, if you're talking about a FEMA shelter, maybe, and, something temporary like that, it can be rapidly deployed.
Right.
But in most cases in our system, we're talking about big buildings that, have to have a ton of services and people and operations and all those kinds of
Right.
things. So it's not really rapidly deploying.
Mm.
deploying. Crisis intervention points, yes and no. I would say that there's still some trauma that goes on when people are staying at a shelter. I mean, if you talk to people out on the street who don't go to shelter, one of the reasons they don't go is they fear for their belongings getting taken. They don't have privacy. different things like that, or they can't bring their pets,
The
the rules.
general, yeah. Yep.
Exactly. Different things like that.
Yeah.
And then flexibility and preventing further trauma. I do agree that it does alleviate some of that trauma. Again, going back to the idea of the immediate safety. So I think the most compelling point about having more shelter in an area is that immediate safety, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for us, for the more housing, I think the long term, it's which is what we do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think one of the major, not the major, but one of the issues we see with this is that we see, and I just said it earlier, is the person ready for that?
That's right. Yeah.
And so we put someone in just because we think it's going to work for them,
Right.
but then they're not ready for it,
Yeah.
and they end up going back on the street.
Yeah.
And so it depends. I think on both sides of it, the shelter and the housing, it depends on the person who
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
because I
No
agree
doubt.
with you, some people don't want shelter just because of bad experiences,
That's right.
all the examples you gave.
Yep.
But I think with the permanent one, and we've seen that, is someone's just not ready.
Yeah.
We put them in a unit and they're just not,
Yeah.
they don't know because they've been so long on the street, they don't know how to function there,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
being alone, they're not alone with their peers.
Yep.
But I think that's one of the major ones that stood out to me is
Yeah, I agree.
figuring out what to, do.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to that housing as the end of homelessness, because that's the other thing about the shelters is you don't end homelessness with shelters, and that's
Right.
basically kind of where it.
And I think like what you said earlier, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, you're in a shelter, your house. Well, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. That's a temporary, that's a
Right?
band-aid
Oh,
we're putting
absolutely.
on
Yeah.
to just get you off. It better be in a shelter on the street, of course.
Yes.
You know,
In most
Mhm.
cases, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but I think it's, yeah, a lot of people, that's kind of that misconception of you're in a shelter, your house. No, you're not.
No, you're
You
not.
have your own
No,
place.
no.
You're sharing it with a bunch of other people, and
And I think that's an important distinction to make for the community is when the community says we need more shelter, they often confuse shelter with housing
correct.
and say, okay, we've gotten people off of the streets. Now we don't have to worry about them anymore. Well, that's not true. I mean, the reality is those people are still homeless. They don't have their own place to stay, and it's not a
Yep.
long-term solution for
You
them.
build a shelter for 500 people, then you should have 500 units
You got to have
to
at least 500.
move people in, because then they're just going to sit there.
They're going to sit there. That's
And
exactly
so,
right.
whatever amount of shelter space you build, you hopefully should have enough of that, to
Multiplied.
start moving.
Yeah, you got to get people through there.
Back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Pathlight's position, Pathlight Home is in favor of getting all people off the streets, but to do so without housing at the end of the journey is to keep them homeless. Housing is the final answer, even if people must go through shelter first.
And that's exactly right.
Yep.
You gotta have housing at the end of it.
Mhm.
So, and to your point, and I think this is a strong point to emphasize, is if you're going to build more shelter, you're going to have more shelter. You've got to think about
Yep.
where is the more housing going to come from.
Exactly.
In fact, sorry, I'll tell this little thing. The other day, I went to here in Orange County, we're thinking about building a new shelter, a 150 bed shelter. And one of the questions came from the audience of people in the community. And they said, where's the affordable housing that all these people are going to go to?
Right.
And it was a great question. And honestly, our staff, our county staff who were talking about it, kind of sidestepped the question because there's not a whole lot of affordable housing available
Well, I
out
think
there.
that's the first question
Yeah.
that should be asked every time you want to build.
Every time we want to build shelters, where's the affordable housing?
Where are you moving them to?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. All right. Well, we made it to the halfway point, and during halftime, we want to take a moment to highlight an inspired quote related to homelessness.
All right. So, time to get inspired by a quote of the week. The quote comes from Leo Tolstoy, noted author of War and Peace. So, his quote is, "My piece of bread only belongs to me when I know that everyone else has a share and that no one starves while I eat."
I think that's a good
Mhm.
quote.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think again, it goes back to, again, I'll go back to our topic of the system of care is we've got to have a system set up for everybody because as long as there are still people out on the streets, our community is not the best community it can be.
Right.
And it affects everything.
Mhm.
It affects our businesses. It affects our schools. It affects our hospitals. It affects our police officers. I mean, it affects everybody in the community. People think that sometimes they think anyway that it's an individual problem, that, one person out in the streets, that's their problem. That's not my problem. Well, guess what? It is your problem. You live in this community and you're part of this community. And while there are still people out there on the streets, we are not the best community we can be.
And I think I think that when we have these discussions about shelters, then it becomes the problem for the community
That's right.
because now they're like, they don't want it in their backyard.
That's exactly right.
It's not coming to them. They're like, let me turn a blind eye.
That's right.
No problem.
Exactly.
It's over there.
It's over there.
But when it's coming close to you now,
Now it becomes your problem.
not
That's
as
right.
upset about it.
And not realizing that it's your problem anyway, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. It's affecting
Yeah.
our community and our lives here because guess what? Businesses won't come here. Tourists won't come here. All of these other things that are affecting other people in their lives, whether it's close to you or not, those things are affecting your community and how our community responds
And
to
again,
that.
back to Maxwell, 55,000 people,
Yeah.
right? Low wages, almost losing their homes.
Yes, exactly.
That's a family member. That's,
That's
cousin
exactly right. Yeah.
wants that.
That's
That's a
exactly
family
right.
member. You have to look at that also.
That's exactly right.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes our halftime. Please stay with us after this short message.
Hello, I'm Gigi Ramirez, the Senior Director of Fundraising and Engagement here at Pathlight Home. For over 30 years, we've helped more than 8,000 people transition from homelessness to hope. But when someone moves from the streets to their own home, they often have nothing. That's why we provide immediate essentials, everything from bedding and food to soap and cookware, to help them truly feel at home. Beyond housing, Pathlight offers career training and supportive services, like our 12-week culinary program, helping residents gain skills, find jobs, and rebuild independence. You can be part of the story. Volunteer your time, donate essential goods, or become a monthly Pathlight hero, ensuring every neighbor has a chance to thrive. Visit pathlighthome.org to donate today.
It's now time to kick off the third quarter by highlighting the goodwill and good work in the NFL community and taking some questions from our listener.
All right. Well, I'll start it off with our NFL MVP. This week, our NFL spotlight is actually an owner, Arthur Blank, the owner of two prominent Atlanta, Georgia sports teams, including our Atlanta Falcons for the NFL.
Yep.
He has reportedly donated $1 million to the Trevor Project, an LGBTQ plus youth advocacy organization. Retired NFL defensive end Carl Nassib, who is also the first NFL player to come out as gay while playing in the league, announced the donation on his LinkedIn page, praising the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation for its extraordinary donation. The Trevor Project is a leading nonprofit organization concentrated on suicide prevention and crisis intervention for LGBTQ plus young people, according to its website. This donation helps fund counselor training, enhance volunteer services, and ensure our critical programs reach LGBTQ plus youth in their most vulnerable moments, Nassib wrote. Thank you again to the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation. This gift will save lives. Blank owns both the National Football League's Atlanta Falcons and Major League Soccer's Atlanta United. His foundation has a history of supporting charitable initiatives, including donations for youth development, assistance to disadvantaged communities, and mental health programs. In December of 2025, the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation announced a $25 million investment into youth mental health and well-being. So, fantastic.
Kind of
That's
good to
great.
show that not only players are giving back,
The
but
owners are giving back.
back
That's
too,
absolutely right.
and getting involved in youth and homelessness and LGBTQ and all that other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really good.
And again, going back to our topic, I wanted to point out that, LGBTQ plus population and young people in particular have a harder time navigating in our system.
Right.
Our system is designed for most of our system access is designed for the general population or the largest number of people possible.
Correct.
Doesn't think about kind of the people who are the smaller subpopulations of that.
Yeah.
About the only one I think that we've seen that's been successful is veterans.
Veterans. Yep.
The veteran subpopulation has gotten a lot of money, has gotten a lot of funding, a lot of resources thrown their way. But these other subpopulations, youth, LGBTQ plus, even other subpopulations that are out there don't have the
And
scale.
we're slowly seeing that being addressed. Like SALT has a great program
That's
for
right.
LGBTQ.
You're
Have
exactly
their
right.
own
Yes.
location. Zebra has
Correct.
for a very long time. So they're talking about it more and addressing it more than
They are.
a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
So,
but literally we have to carve out these subpopulations for some of these
and what it looks like
specific
and how we
groups.
can help them and the
Exactly.
services and
Exactly.
programs.
And all those different types of
Yep.
things. Instead of thinking it on the overall system level,
Correct. Yeah.
because that's really what we should be doing from the very beginning, is thinking about it overall from the system
Right.
of who's everybody who could have access or who needs access to the services and how do we serve them.
Yep,
So
definitely.
yeah.
All right. So now we're going to take a few questions from our listeners. So, Carl, the first question comes from Patty.
Okay.
What should I do to get someone into shelter or housing?
Ooh, okay. This is
It's
a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So we talked about this a little bit before.
Mhm.
Accessing shelter and accessing housing. First of all, two different animals.
Two different things, yep.
Definitely two different
Two
animals.
different.
The shelter, the answer is it depends more than anything. It depends on if it's a single male, if it's a female with children, if it's,
couple.
a couple.
Mhm.
There's all kinds of different access issues, I guess I would say, with each of those groups. A single male is basically going to have to wait in line. He's just going to have to go somewhere,
Yep.
find a shelter that will take single males, and wait in line like every other single male in the entire area.
Yeah.
A woman with children or a female might have an easier time because most shelters try not to turn away women and children more than anything. And so even if they get to a shelter or can get to a shelter, a woman with children will often find even other options sometimes, is they'll have hotel rooms available.
Mhm.
They'll have other shelter type things available for,
Yeah, I think I agree that just again coming from a shelter,
Yep.
I knew the men's side was always pretty much at capacity.
Oh yeah.
It was but the women, and I told you the story before, I used to get in trouble a lot because they used to drop people off after hours. That was a woman with a child.
Right.
We had no space, and I did not care. I brought them in, and I'll take the brunt of it after.
Yeah.
But I used to always bring them in because I just didn't want them out.
Put them on a
And I-
cot in the
put 'em-
dining room or whatever
we
it
used to
takes.
do,
Yeah.
but we usually had more space when it came for more of women and children and women and infants.
Right.
Because we had separate dorms for them.
Uh-huh.
And there was usually always availability for that. But on the
Right.
men's side,
Yeah.
it was always
Always packed.
packed. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but we used to try to accommodate as much as we could, especially in those situations with a single mom. And
Yeah. So on the shelter side, that's again a different kind of challenge. And on the housing side, uh, I don't want to say it's more complicated, but it is more complicated. On the housing side, really the only way to access housing in our system here in Central Florida and in most places is to go through the continuum of care lead agency
Yep.
or go through what we call the coordinated entry
Mhm.
process.
Yep.
And sometimes that starts with, again, a 211 or a 311 call
Yep.
and trying to get connected there.
talking to
But
an outreach person.
that's right. Or talking to an outreach person, you've got to figure out who it is. Now, I'll give a general blanket answer though for this whole thing is how do you get someone in shelter housing? You connect them to someone who professionally does this. You cannot do it yourself.
Yep.
A community member who does not know our system is not going to be able to access these things.
We used to have that at the shelter. Someone would come in with a friend and say,
Mhm.
hey, they're homeless.
Right.
No case management.
No case
They're
management.
not in the system.
Don't know anything
All
about
they know is that they're in the street.
That's right.
You know,
Exactly.
they mean well.
Yeah, oh,
They
absolutely.
mean well. They want to
Yeah.
help them. One of our first questions used to be, well, can you take them in?
Right. Can you take them at the
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, we're right
exactly.
up.
Yes. Can you take them at yes.
But a lot of times, those people that were bringing them in were having a hard time financially
Right.
themselves.
That's right.
And probably on the
Yeah.
bear of
Oh,
on their
absolutely.
own.
Yeah.
So they couldn't absorb
That's
another
exactly
person
right.
coming into
Yeah.
the home, or they had children, they didn't have space. But a lot of times people just brought them in. It was like, can you take them? And I'm like, it's not that easy.
No.
Even here for us, our market,
Yeah.
we have people refer people over to us
Oh,
and
yeah.
say, hey, do you have an apartment, thinking that we're going to give it to them right away?
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's just that education piece.
Yeah. But again, getting connected to a
Mhm.
professional.
Yeah.
You got to get connected to a case manager, an outreach worker, somebody who does this for a living.
And have more resources.
Because that's right. Because they'll be able to tap into those things
Mhm.
and they'll be able to get the process started. So
They can figure, like if it's a vet coming in,
that's right.
okay, well, let's connect you with SSVS.
That's exactly right.
There's so many different resources.
Absolutely.
That's put in
Yeah.
there, so.
Absolutely.
All right. Our next question comes from Tammy. How long does it typically take for someone to go from homelessness to housed?
Ooh, this is a good question. Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends, obviously. It depends on their situation and, what's going on with them in their life. And let me clarify that. Let me, make that clear to everybody. Each housing type that we have has different criteria,
Correct.
different eligibility criteria.
Mhm.
So, uh, and again, I go back to this. That's why you got to connect into a professional.
Right.
We understand these things. Our people are trained to understand that every different type of housing has a different type of criteria. And so they know they can, in the first 30 minutes of talking with somebody, they can tell
Where they're at.
almost how long it's going to take for somebody to get in.
Yeah.
So somebody who's trying to get into permanent supportive housing might have an easier time because there might be more access to permanent supportive housing in different types of programs. Somebody who doesn't have a disability, somebody who's first time homeless, they might have a harder time getting in because there might not be as much housing available for that type of individual and that type of eligibility. And so
I think getting an assessment done, when
getting an
meet with
assessment
someone,
is huge.
kind of sets
Absolutely.
it up of where that person is going.
How long it's going to take.
Mhm.
And usually, I want to say our staff probably give people an idea of that. They shouldn't, and we tell them not to give people any false hope or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
But the reality is they'll probably be able to tell people about how long they're seeing for a person to be able to get into housing.
Right.
But it takes a while. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You've got to have identification. You've got to have income verification. You've got to have verification of your homeless status. You got to have all of these things in place before you can get into most of our housing programs.
Right.
And so if people have all those things in place, then it's faster.
Yeah.
If people don't have those things in place, it's longer. In terms of time frame, I would say it's going to take probably at least a month for somebody to move in, if not longer than that, depending on where they are and getting all of their information together.
Yeah, I think documentation is one of the biggest headaches
Absolutely.
for someone to get, just
Absolutely.
because, again, they're on the street.
Yeah.
They have nothing.
Yeah.
So they probably lost their ID.
Yep.
Not going to have all this documentation that a leasing department's asking for.
That's right.
So to then go get it, it takes a while.
It
So,
takes a while.
Right.
Absolutely. But again, got to get connected to professionals because they can get you through the system faster than somebody who doesn't know anything about the
they
system.
know how to connect you to Social Security. They know how to connect you with, people like iDignity,
I
get
do.
your ID.
That's right.
You know,
Exactly.
So they know the system.
They know the system.
How to sometimes bypass it.
That's right. And how to work
if
it.
actually-
Yeah,
especially if
absolutely.
they have contacts. And,
That's right. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. All those things
Mm.
come into play.
Yeah.
All right. Well, stay tuned for our wrap up after this message. We're now at the end of the third quarter. Hi, I'm Carl Falconer, President and CEO of Pathlight Home. Have you ever wondered what it really takes to end homelessness? Why don't you come see for yourself? At Pathlight Home, you can tour our communities, volunteer your time, and be part of real, lasting change. Whether you're serving a meal, supporting our residents, or making a gift, every action moves someone closer to a place to call home. Visit us, get involved, and help us light the path home for our neighbors in need. Thank you.
All right, welcome to the fourth quarter, where we will wind down this episode by first reflecting on a homelessness MVP, discussing a fumble, and finishing up with our key takeaway.
All right. Well, I'll start it off with our homelessness MVP of the week. This week's MVP is the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners. On April 21st, they approved by a vote of 5-0 a budget transfer in the amount of $1 million in the general fund from Human Services Senior Supportive Housing Center to Human Services Financial Assistance. The county budget for fiscal year 2026 included these funds for wraparound services for the Senior Supportive Housing La Quinta Inn project. The project did not move forward, and as a result, these dollars will support rental assistance for those experiencing homelessness in Palm Beach County.
Very cool.
So, yeah, it's very cool. And let me explain a little bit of this for people who are not as familiar with these types of services or how these types of things work. First of all, this is $1 million from their general fund, which means this was taxpayer raised dollars that they have flexible ability to be able to use or not use. And the reason that it's an MVP is because because they had this $1 million earmarked specifically for a capital project to turn a hotel into affordable housing. The project didn't go forward, and they could have easily pulled that money back and used it for something completely different than homeless services. They could have. It's just general funding, which means they could use it for whatever they want, giving themselves raises if that's what they wanted to do. But they did not. They, in fact, all unanimously voted to now switch it to rental assistance for people experiencing homelessness in Palm Beach County. So effectively doing the same thing that they were going to do with the capital project is try to get people into housing and use this funding that way. I think that's
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. I don't want to say it's unheard of, but I do want to say that it's unusual. That's
Rare.
right. That you would take this money and actually continue to use it for what the main purpose was to get people housed.
All five of them.
All five of them,
Fantastic.
which is absolutely fantastic.
That's understanding what's needed in their community. That's
Absolutely.
understanding the need that they have.
And it's appropriate because they had already earmarked this to help people get housed, and then they just switched it and said, okay, we'll help people get housed a different way.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And now their homelessness population is going to decrease.
It's going to decrease because of it.
Because
That's
if that million wasn't used, then we would have seen an increase.
Then
like
you'd see
a year.
That's exactly right.
So
Yes.
and then they wouldn't have to invest more money.
That's right. Exactly.
Get
Yes.
some multitude because it increased. So
That's exactly right.
fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, Carl, for giving me the fumble this week. And now on to the fumble of the week. So this week's fumble comes by the way of the New York Times. We just talked about this yesterday. In Utah, outside Salt Lake City, a proposal was submitted by the state legislature to create a 1,300 capacity campus to force people experiencing homelessness into accountability centers or forced treatment for addiction or mental illness. This proposal has gone back and forth, but has reached a point where it is now in jeopardy of moving forward at all. Originally intended to utilize funding from the federal government, it now appears with recent shifts in HUD funding priorities that money will not be available. Along with Republican tax cuts approved by the state, the funding of this facility, $75 million to build and $34 million to run annually, is all but dead. As one Democrat said in the state Senate noted, you can't just throw out a lot of rhetoric, put them in camps, and think you're going to solve homelessness. That's fantastic. State lawmakers have now shifted their attention in the meantime to providing $45 million to increase shelter and housing capacity and expand mental health care options. But it must be matched by local contributions to be used. One program called Project Connect identified the 50 people most frequently arrested and assigned social workers to provide intense casework to help them access housing and care for mental illness and addiction.
Yeah. And again, the reason that this is a fumble is they went through this process, and this has been years
Whole thing, yeah.
going on, where they're trying to build this campus on the outside of Salt Lake City, away from everybody, so they don't have to worry about NIMBY, because there's nobody that lives there. There's no access to anything there. And basically force people to go into this, this campus, this accountability center, as they said. I know.
Rosby Road,
It's just,
the word.
I know.
Jeez.
And again, that's what the argument has been back and forth with advocates who are saying you can't just force people to go into these, centers and everything. But then it comes down to funding, and it ends up that as they get through this entire process and they go through the legislature and they pass all this legislation, they do all these things, and then they don't even have money to be able to fund the thing. And now they're switching and providing money for what it should have been intended to do to begin with, is to provide shelter, housing capacity, and more mental health services for the providers that are already out there on the streets doing this. Absolutely ridiculous. I think it was Winston Churchill said something like something to the effect of uh, America will always find the right thing to do after they've tried everything else. And it's like this is a perfect example of that. After you've tried everything else that you've got, you'll finally get back to the right solution.
But you should have started.
But you should have started with, and not wasted all this time and all this energy and everything like that. So
It's a
yeah,
waste of time and resources.
absolutely. Yeah. And finally, here's our key takeaway for this episode. Systems intended to help people often have challenges inherent in the design. We must always be challenging and improving those systems in order for our communities to be better. So I think that's, again, that just speaks to it. Look, systems are hard. They're challenging. They're complex. They're big.
They're always changing.
But the reality is that you've always got to be challenging them. You've always got to be trying to improve them and trying to move forward. We just added a quality improvement committee to our board here at Pathlight Home, and that's the reason we do it, is because we want to always be improving. And if you're not trying to improve your system, then your system is falling behind.
And figuring out what works and doesn't work and how we adjust to it.
That's exactly.
Especially in our population that we serve, it's always changing.
Yeah, it's
We
always.
always have to figure out how to change with the times.
Absolutely.
Because if not, we're never going to go
You're
forward.
falling behind.
Yeah,
That's exactly
And
right.
we have to play catch up. So
That's right.
kind of like the fumble we just ran.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So this concludes our episode of the week. Remember, if you have any questions or comments for us, please email us at questions@pathlighthome.org. As always, we leave the last words for our beloved co-founder, the late Reverend Fred Maxwell. Take it away.
I'm still dreaming. That we will become able and sufficient to increase the housing of homeless. This is merely a beginning.